the Volkswagen and other companies, they're making a car with an engine that'll get in excess of 70 miles to the gallon. Well, wow, that's great. So how come we can't get one? Because they won't allow them to be sold in the United States.
Sure.
Okay? Now, wait a minute. Wow, what's this all about?
Scarcity,
the
man.
explanation, which seems likely, is that, yes, it's corporate greed, but it's more than that. I know here in Texas, we have one of the best highway systems in the nation, and it's due to the gasoline tax. When you buy a gallon of gasoline for $2.50, or $3.50, however much it is now, probably more than half, maybe three-quarters of that price you're paying for that gallon of gasoline is taxes. And those taxes go to build the highways and maintain the highways. Well, if everybody started driving 70 mile per gallon cars, then that's going to cut their taxes in half.
Right.
And they won't have money to repair the roads. So they say, well, it's an economic issue. Well, so what do you do about that? Okay, it's real simple. If you educate people and people understand that they could have a car that could get 70 miles a gallon and cut their gasoline bills in half, if they truly understood that, then all they got to do is for a significant percentage of the people just say, okay, I'm not going to buy a new car this year until you give me one that'll give me 70 miles a gallon. And what are the car manufacturers going to do? They're going to choke up and say, okay, here's a car that'll get 70 miles an hour. This is how, in a market, a free market, and even in a corporate-run market, that's how you can get something done, because they are greedy and they do look to their bottom line. And if you can affect their bottom line, they will change.
Yeah, but the issue we've got in America today is the government interference with the free market, obviously, the crony capitalism.
There's no free market.
Right, there's no free market. And speaking of the automobile industry, we've got the U.S. government now actually spending taxpayer money to move U.S. automobile manufacturing facilities overseas into places like China, actually gutting the industrial base, gutting the jobs base in America here, and doing it deliberately, and saying that the government is here to save you the whole time, because now you don't have a job, you don't have a house, you don't have health care. Now you're a total government dependent, a total victim, and that's right where they want you.
That's the game plan, Mike, as you well know. It is absolutely incredible, but what they want is everyone totally dependent on the government, and that's why they are pushing this globalist, socialist agenda. People go, oh, socialism, oh no. Well, people have different views of socialism, and that's just like people have different views of democracy. And socialism, which means public ownership of all the means of production and distribution, that doesn't sound like such a bad thing, really.
It does to me.
Except what everybody loses sight of is on any social program, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's going to require central administration.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the key to it, because once they get a global socialist system, and some programs like, say, Medicare or Social Security might be good. Some programs like Obamacare are probably terrible. But regardless of whether good, bad, or indifferent, they require central authority. And these globalists, these people who meet at Bilderberg, they know they have the power and the money to buy up the central administration. And then that's how they achieve one of the oldest goals in the history of the world, which is control of the world.
No, it's incredible. Clearly, a world government is on the agenda, and another agenda, Agenda 21, of course, is world government control of all environment, land, animals, resources, things like that. But let me ask you a financial question, Jim, that's been on my mind here. There's so much happening in Europe right now. A financial cascading collapse appears to be imminent. We've got the Greece situation. We've got Spain on, money fleeing Spain. Some bank runs have already been reported there. A lot of concern about Spain. We've got the Tokyo market just crashed on Friday to a 28-year low. There's new talk about the new retirement age for many people in many countries around the world is going to have to be set at 80 years old. So you can't retire until you're 80, if you even live that long, which is highly unlikely if you're injected with the cancer-causing vaccines and drinking the fluoride in the public water supply. Your thoughts, Jim Mars?
Well, that's pretty much it. They're working their global agenda, but there's so many aspects to this. For example, everybody kind of knows about the Federal Reserve System. system and how it's neither federal nor does it have any reserves, and it's simply a collection of banks that are owned by other banks, which are then owned by private individuals, many of whom are not even American citizens. And these are the folks who are looting us and looting the public treasury. Let's not forget the $15 trillion that Ben Bernanke sent overseas to prop up foreign banks.
Right.
Now, when people are struggling to make a living, struggling to keep their families afloat, buy groceries, and then you tell them that their tax money is going to prop up foreign banks, that should get people upset. But they don't really hear it because they listen to TV. Okay? But they've got all kinds of things going on. The Financial Stability Board, are you familiar with that? This is something that Barack Obama signed us up to in 2009, on April the 2nd, 2009, at the G20 meeting in London. He signed us up for the Financial Stability Board, which is, it used to be called the Financial Stability Forum, which was a division, a part of the Bank for International Settlements, which, if you've read my book, The Rise of the Fourth Reich, you realize was an old Nazi-controlled bank before, during, and after the war.
Right.
And they had the Financial Stability Forum, which was basically just a good old boys meeting of the international bankers trying to keep things stabilized and everything in their favor. Well, now they've changed the name to the Financial Stability Board, and we have signed up for this. And according to their own, it's a policy-making board, and they can set standards, policies, regulations, and pass them on to their respective nations. And the idea is to standardize the financial system in the world.
Right,
so
right. Global bank.
Over our own financial system anymore. It's in the hands of a board made up of foreigners that came out of a Nazi-controlled bank.
Yeah, but look where it's going, Jim. And Darren McBreen here at the InfoWars studios has been doing some research and reports on this. It's all about going to a cashless society. It's all about the chip implants, the electronic, centrally, globally controlled money system where everything you buy is tracked. Every financial transaction is spied on by the government just by default, immediately. You have no financial privacy. You can't even carry cash without being considered a criminal. And that has already begun in some ways.
It's in embryonic stages, but it has already begun. But now, here's the whole thing, Mike. How are you going to get people in the world, particularly like in North America and the United States, where we had a pretty stable and widely accepted dollar, how do you get them to go to such a system? You have to destroy the dollar.
Exactly.
And they're doing it quite well.
Yeah, but let's talk about that. The dollar right now is looking good, but only relative to the collapse in Europe. So a lot of money is fleeing Europe into the dollar, making the dollar look good. Your comments, go ahead.
Yeah, that's like saying my dilapidated, run-down old house looks pretty good compared to the one next door, which is burning down.
It's on fire. Yeah, right. Everybody run to the shack.
Right. Yeah, get to the shack. It's a good place now.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly what's going on. Also, the other important point here is that all of these so-called defenders, people who work for the government, the TSA workers, the police, the FBI, all of these people who work for the government, they are dependent on government pensions for their retirements.
That's right.
Now, we're headed into a break here shortly, but I want your thoughts, Jim. What's going to happen when these pensions disappear?
Well, here's the big problem is that, and this happened years ago, this happened back in the 70s because I saw the stories before I left the newspaper I was working for at the time, and that is that they crossed the threshold, the 50% mark, where now more than 50%, now it's way on up there, of the population of the United States, a big, healthy majority of the population is now deriving its sole income from the government, okay? And when you have that kind of situation, then you have the very situation that de Tocqueville wrote about when he came over and saw the fledgling United States just beginning in back in the 1700s, went back and wrote and said that, you know, democracy sounds good, but it'll never last, because as soon as people realize they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury, they're just going to vote for whoever promises them the most.
Sure.
And unfortunately, that's kind of where we are today.
I think we've crossed that threshold already, Jim.
A long time ago, yeah.
We got to go to a break here, so hold on just a second. But when we come back from this break, I want to ask Jim Marrs about the zombie apocalypse that has been happening across America. His comments on that and much more when we return here on The Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. I hope you realize the power that you have as an individual out there, and I hope you're not just listening to this show as a source of entertainment. I hope it's a source of inspiration that strikes a thread in your own heart and your own mind to take action right now to help us survive what's coming. You know, the quote from Alex that he said earlier, he says, quote, "We're not heroes, we're just trying to survive." And that's why he hates to be called a hero for anything that he's doing out there, even though people see, you know, you have a lot of courage, you're very aggressive out there fighting for freedoms and so on, but he doesn't want to be seen in that way. He says, we're just trying to survive, and he wants you to join the fight in working to survive. And of course, one of the authors who has been working in the same parallel effort for a couple of decades, several decades, in fact, is Jim Marrs, and he continues with us by phone here on the Alex Jones Show. So, Jim, before the break, we talked about the zombie apocalypse. We've got literal zombies rising up across America now. Several reports, including the face-eating zombie in Miami, which I guess is not a laughing matter. Breaking news this morning, the one cannibal, which we're calling zombies, was captured in Berlin as of this morning. That was reported on the Drudge Report. So what are your thoughts, Jim? What's going on?
Right before we get to the zombies, let me toss in one coda here on what we were talking about before the break about how that there are now more people making their living from the government than paying into it. You know, one thing, just one simple change of law could really make a huge effect here, and that is that anyone who is deriving more than 50% of their income from the government should not be allowed to vote, okay, because it's a conflict of interest.
Sure.
Only those who are paying into the government get to vote, because otherwise the whole thing's lopsided and it doesn't work.
Well, unfortunately, we've crossed the 50% threshold, though, Jim. So now more than half the country is on the dole, and that's never going to happen. I agree with your assessment, but it's never going to happen.
And now they vote, and they're not going to vote for somebody who would try to take their vote away. So I know it's a catch-22, but you can see how ridiculous the whole thing is.
Yeah.
And that's leading kind of to what we're talking about here about the zombies. First, let me tell you where the zombie thing came from, or at least for my book, The $1 Trillion Conspiracy, which I was forced to change the title by the publisher. My original title was Zombie Nation.
Yeah, I like that title better.
Everyone does, and in fact, I'm convinced that the only reason they made me change it was to diminish the sales. They really don't want it out.
You need to get a new publisher, man.
In fact, sure enough, they stuck it over on the financial bookshelves in the bookstores, you know, where only a few of the number crunchers go to actually get those books, and investment people. But anyway, the thing is, that started with what they call the zombie banks. Now, a zombie bank is a bank that is broke. Okay, it's dead, but it's still going through the motions. It's still in business because of the TARP money, you know, public money that's been tax money that's been thrown at it to prop it back up. So it's dead, but it's going through the motions. So they call those zombie banks. Well, the reason I call it Zombie Nation is because, depending on who you want to listen to, this nation now owes somewhere 15 trillion, 20 trillion plus trillions of dollars, which is an unimaginable number. And yet it's also been estimated that if for every man, woman, and child in the country sold off everything they've got, their clothes, their TV, their car, their house, everything, we couldn't come up collectively with maybe but about $9 or $10 trillion. So in other words, we're broke. We're a dead nation.
Yeah.
But we're just still going through the motion.
Zombie Nation, hey,
Zombie Nation.
We got to go to break again. Real quick, short break here, folks. We'll be back in just a little over a minute. And stay with us here on the Alex Jones Show. Jim Marrs is coming back with more talk about Zombie Nation, zombie banks, but also the rise of the zombie apocalypse and actual physical zombies now eating other people. Stay with us. We'll be back with a lot more on the Alex Jones Show.
Alex Jones.
Wow, we're already into the third hour of the show today. The time is flying today. We heard from...
And maintain the highways. Well, if everybody started driving 70 mile per gallon cars, then that's going to cut their taxes in half.
Right.
And they won't have money to repair the roads. So they say, well, it's an economic issue. Well, so what do you do about that? Okay, it's real simple. If you educate people and people understand that they could have a car that could get 70 miles a gallon and cut their gasoline bills in half, if they truly understood that, then all they do look to their bottom line. And if you can affect their bottom line, they will change.
Yeah, but the issue we've got in America today is the government interference with the free market, obviously, the crony capitalism.
There's no free market.
Right, there's no free market. And speaking of the automobile industry, we've got the U.S. government now actually spending taxpayer money to move U.S. automobile manufacturing facilities overseas into places like China, actually gutting the industrial base.
Yes, it's corporate greed, but it's more than that. I know here in Texas, we have one of the best highway systems in the nation, and it's due to the gasoline tax. When you buy a gallon of gasoline for $2.50, $3.50, however much it is now, probably more than half, maybe three-quarters of that price you're paying for that gallon of gasoline is taxes. And those taxes go to build a highway. What you got to do is for a significant percentage of the people just say, okay, I'm not going to buy a new car this year until you give me one that'll give me 70 miles a gallon. And what are the car manufacturers going to do? They're going to choke up and say, okay, here's a car that'll get 70 miles an hour. This is how, in a market, a free market, and even in a corporate-run market, that's how you can get something done, because they are greedy, and the Volkswagen and other companies, they're making a car with an engine that'll get in excess of 70 miles to the gallon. Well, wow, that's great. So how come we can't get one? Because they won't allow them to be sold in the United States.
Sure.
Okay? Now, wait a minute. Wow, what's this all about?
Scarcity,
well, the
man.
explanation, which seems likely, is that